Hello and welcome to another Lick of the Week. In this video we're going to be looking at the playing style of the late great Gary Moore. Gary is famous for songs such as Parisian Walkways, Still Got the Blues and Empty Rooms. Sadly, Gary passed away while on holiday in Spain in 2011. Robert William Gary Moore was born in Belfast in 1952. His father was involved in the music business as a promoter, and he asked Gary when he was 10 if he would like to play the guitar. He didn't hesitate and felt very at home with it as soon as he picked it up. He fell in love with it and after that had absolutely no interest in anything else. Gary also loved the blues. Gary formed his own band, the Beat Boys, when the rhythm and blues era was at its most popular. They used to play at the Maritime Club in Belfast, and was where he met another blues great, Rory Gallagher, when he was about 13 or 14. They used to share each other's guitars, leaving on stage for the other one to play in case they broke a string as they couldn't afford spare ones. Rory used to play a Stratocaster and Gary used to play a Telecaster. As a teenager, Gary was a very in-demand musician and was spotted by the band Skid Row, which was fronted by Phil Lynott. Gary and Phil bonded like brothers. There was rivalry and great friendship. He recorded 2 albums with the band. Phil soon left the band and went on to form Thin Lizzy. Gary stayed in Skid Row and they played as a 3-piece. He met Peter Green at a gig they were both playing at and they became great friends. Peter persuaded their manager Clifford Davies to sign the band up and get them over to England. They got a record deal and were looked after by Fleetwood Mac's manager. But after 2 albums and a tour of America, their ambitions were never realised and then Gary left the band. Peter asked Gary if he wanted to borrow his Les Paul. A few days later he asked him if he wanted to keep it. Gary said yes and sold the guitar that he had at the time and gave Peter whatever he got for it. Kirk Hammett from Metallica now has this guitar. At the start of 1974, Gary was back playing with Phil in Thin Lizzy, replacing guitarist Eric Bell. He helped them out for a few years whilst he was working on his solo material. He was then called back in 1979 to play on the album Black Rose, where he got to be more creative. Thin Lizzy are famous for their melodic guitars and great harmonies. Big hits include Boys Are Back in Town, Whiskey in the Jar and Jailbreak. Gary and Phil collaborated on Parisian Walkways, which started out as an instrumental and Phil wrote the lyrics to. Phil's middle name was Paris and his dad's forename was too. Due to musical differences, Gary left the band during an American tour for Black Rose. But in 1985, Gary and Phil were back in the charts with the song Out in the Fields. Sadly, the following year, Phil died of drug-related problems. Away from the pressures of pop music, Gary pursued his love of rock, metal, jazz and folk. But his return to the blues would become his biggest homecoming. He released the album Still Got the Blues in 1990 and it was the most successful of his career. Bassist Bob Daisy said he should make a blues album after hearing him play the blues in the dressing room before a gig, and they both laughed about it. He said it'd be the biggest thing you ever do, and it was. Gary got B.B. King to play on his next album, which was called After Hours. Gibson and Fender both make Gary Moore's signature models. Like many blues players, Gary used to use the minor pentatonic scale a lot in his playing. It's a great scale that can be used in lots of situations. It only has 5 notes. Penta means 5 in Greek, instead of the usual 7, making it a little bit easier to remember and play. The notes that are left out are the ones that make other minor scales different from each other. For example, if you're playing over a modal progression, you're not sure if it's Dorian or Phrygian, the notes that make these scales different are the 2nd note and the 6th note. Dorian has a natural or major 2nd and 6th, and Phrygian has a minor or flattened 2nd and 6th. The intervals in the minor pentatonic scale are 1, flat 3, 4, 5 and flat 7, so this scale would work in either situation. It's not quite the same for major pentatonic, as the intervals in this scale are 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. This would work over major progressions as well as Lydian, which is 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6 and 7, as well as Mixolydian, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and flat 7. Anyway, that's enough theory, here's the lick at full speed. Although the pentatonic scale can be easier to remember and play, it can also be played very quickly too. and Gary was also very good at this. Joe Bonamassa is another blues guitarist who's very good at playing quick pentatonic runs too. Joe picks a lot of his notes, whereas Gary used to use a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs. If you haven't heard Gary shredding, you should definitely check it out. Check out Joe's playing too. I hope you enjoyed the video. If I've left out any important facts about Gary, then please let me know. I try to include as much as I can, but if there's anything else you think I should have covered, then leave a comment below. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already for more licks and backing tracks every week. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. See you next time.